The unmistakable sounds there of the Galician pipes, a sound that will almost certainly greet you as you enter the Plaza de Obradorio, the large square outside the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. I'm Gary Swift. Hello and welcome to Bite Size Camino, the podcast for information and tips for the older pilgrim on any of the many caminos to Santiago de Compostela.
In today's episode, I'll be discussing accommodation, or where will I sleep. Historically, pilgrims making their way to Santiago would rely upon the kindness and generosity of the people they met along the way for accommodation and sustenance. There was also a network of hostels and hospitals, mostly provided by religious orders, that provided care and shelter to pilgrims. Some of these are still in existence in monasteries and other religious settings today. These are known by the Spanish name for shelter, which is albergue. The people who work there are known as hospitaleros. I'll link back to the early hospitals provided by the monasteries in the Middle Ages. We will be discussing albergues in more depth shortly as I go through the various types of accommodation available, starting with the cheapest and working up to the more expensive. I'll start with camping. You may think that this would be the cheapest option, but this may not be the case. I accept that some people do camp, giving them the freedom to choose when to stop and where to stop, and they may get away with it by finding pitches late in the day or leaving early the next morning. But it's not that simple. Wild camping in both Spain and Portugal is illegal, and you always run the risk of a rude awakening and being forced to move on. You can only legally camp at recognised campsites, but these are few and far between, and the fees can be higher than some of the other forms of accommodation. For most pilgrims, the disadvantages of camping far outweigh the advantages. In addition to running the risk of incurring the wrath of landowners or the authorities, you will also need to carry extra weight. You'll need a much larger pack to accommodate tents, cooking equipment, sleep pads, and sleeping bags, and all the other equipment needed to provide a decent night's sleep. This comes with a significant weight penalty. It may suit some people, but in my opinion, it's really not worth the effort unless you are really driven by a desire to camp. I have met people camping. On one occasion, I encountered two young girls from the Czech Republic who were wild camping under a tarp most nights, with the occasional stay in an albergue to shower and wash their clothes. I also met an American couple who were walking the Camino del Norte on their honeymoon. They were camping, but their strategy was to ask the albergues if they could camp in the garden, giving them the privacy they wanted, but also access to decent facilities. However, camping pilgrims are a very small minority, and I really can't recommend it. The next stage up from camping and a more traditional pilgrimage is to use albergues. These can be found all along the Camino routes. They fall into three general categories: municipal, private, and donativo. Many towns and villages will have a municipal albergue provided by the local council or junta. These are basic but will be clean with hot showers and other facilities. Most provide somewhere to wash your clothes. This may be a simple outdoor cold water sink with a drying line. The safety pins from your first aid kit will be useful for hanging out your wet clothes because typically clothes pegs are in short supply. Most albergues now provide free Wi-Fi, but this can't be relied upon. Municipal albergues rarely provide meals and drinks, but there is usually a kitchen for use by pilgrims. However, be aware that although most of the kitchens will have a sink and a cooker, maybe a microwave, not all provide knives, forks, spoons, crockery, etc. So you may have to have at least the basics with you. If you don't want to prepare your own meals, there's usually a cafe or bar not too far away. Municipal albergues do not accept pack transfers, so you need to be carrying your pack to stay there. They generally open around 2 p.m. and are only available to pilgrims. They can't be booked in advance. It's first come, first served, which may be a problem if you are a slow walker or infirm. To prove your pilgrim status, you'll need to present your pilgrim's credential along with your passport or EU ID card when you check in. The municipal albergues will usually have bunk beds in mixed dormitories, which will vary in size. The smallest I've stayed in had only 8 beds in total, the largest had over 100 in a single room. All albergues will provide you with a sheet to cover the mattress, but this may only be a disposable paper sheet. Some may provide a blanket, others will not. Again, it pays to have the basics. As described in episode 8, I only take a silk sleeping bag liner, and this has always been sufficient for me. You normally have to leave the albergue before 8 a.m. the next day, although many will leave much earlier. As at 2023, the cost of a bed in the municipal albergue was between 8 and €10 per person per night. Pre-COVID, payment was usually only accepted in cash, but post-COVID this is changing and card payment is becoming more common. There are many private albergues. These generally cost slightly more. In 2023, this was usually between 14 and €18 per night. Many, but not all, can be booked in advance, and most will accept pack transfers. Many private albergues also accept non-pilgrims, so not everyone staying there will necessarily be on the Camino. However, generally, the vast majority will be. The private albergues are very similar to the municipal, but they may be a little more comfortable. For example, the dormitories will possibly be slightly smaller. You may get a cotton sheet rather than a paper one, along with a blanket. The kitchen may be better equipped. Some will have washing machines and tumble dryers, and some may provide meals and hot drinks. The facilities will vary from establishment to establishment. If you have a specific requirement, it's always wise to check in advance. The third type of albergue harks back to the original medieval hostels. They are known as donativos. Many are still provided by religious organisations. The facilities will be very similar to the municipal and private. Some will be very basic, some will have excellent facilities. Some will provide meals, some won't. In common with the municipal albergues, most donativos are exclusively for pilgrims and do not accept bookings or pack transfers. They differ from the municipal and private albergues in that there is no fixed charge. The pilgrim is expected to donate what he can afford or what he thinks the stay was worth. However, donativo doesn't mean free. Please give generously. Typically, donativos have no other form of income and rely upon the donations to continue to provide their service. I have worked several sessions as a volunteer hospitalier in a donativo albergue, where we provided very good facilities and a simple breakfast. Most donated a fair payment. Some made very large donations. Unfortunately, we also had a few who left very early the next morning, whilst everyone was asleep without donating anything. Hardly the sort of thing you'd expect from a genuine pilgrim. There is an unwritten etiquette in most albergues. Unfortunately, not all observe it, but most do. If you arrive early and are fit and able, take the top bunk, leaving the more accessible lower bunks for the elderly or infirm, who will inevitably arrive later. Hot water supplies can be limited, so don't take long hot showers using all the hot water. Clean yourself thoroughly by all means, but try to keep showers short, preserving hot water for latecomers. If you use the kitchen area, clean, dry, and return any utensils you may have used. Meal times can be very social affairs, with the pilgrims sharing food and pitching in to prepare a common meal. There may be pilgrims from many countries, all speaking different languages. A single sentence may contain a mix of several languages, but somehow you make it work and manage to communicate. At night, the doors will be locked, so please don't go out for a late evening meal and end up locked out. This has happened. Lights out in most albergues is generally around 10 p.m., but most exhausted pilgrims are asleep well before this. The dormitories can be quite noisy places, with people shuffling to the bathroom in the dark, or even worse, using a bright torch or headlamp shining in the faces of sleeping pilgrims, and you can pretty much guarantee there will be at least one loud snorer. If you're a light sleeper, I would highly recommend earplugs and an eye mask. If you are late to bed, try not to wake those who are already asleep, and if you plan to leave early next morning, pack your bag the night before so you can leave with a minimum of fuss, especially if you use plastic bags to keep your kit dry. The rustle of plastic bags early in the morning can be as loud as an alarm clock. On that note, if you do use an alarm, set it to vibrate, not ring loudly, waking those still sleeping. Try to leave as quietly as possible. Don't let any of this put you off, though. I've used municipal, private, and donativo albergues on all my Caminos. They really are not only cost effective, but generally very clean and comfortable with good facilities and allow you to mix with people from all walks of life. You just need to be considerate of your fellow pilgrims. Keep noise to a minimum and prepare your kit and packs the night before, not just before you leave. Albergues mostly provide shared mixed sex dormitories, so privacy will be at a minimum. If privacy is important to you or you simply don't fancy sharing a noisy dormitory, some private albergues may have private rooms, but these are relatively rare. Your best option would be to look for a pension or casa rural. These can be found in or close to most towns and villages. They generally offer private rooms, some with private bathrooms, some with shared bathrooms. Normally breakfast is included, and sometimes the host may offer an evening meal option. They tend to be small, clean, and comfortable B&B type establishments, as opposed to large purpose-built hotels. They will accept pack transfers and can be booked in advance, either by phone or via online sites such as Booking.com. Booking in advance has the advantage for slow walkers that they have the reassurance of knowing they have a bed for the night and won't have to take part in the inevitable bed race, which can happen at any time, but especially during busy times of year. They do cost more than albergues, and in 2023 this was typically 40 to €50 per night. Moving up the scale, in the larger towns and cities, in addition to albergues and pensions, you'll also have the option to stay in larger purpose-built hotels. These will provide all of the facilities and services that you expect from a hotel at the expected hotel prices, typically 60 to €100 per night. At the very top end of accommodation, you will find Paradors. These are a network of luxury state-owned hotels across Spain. They can be found in converted historic buildings such as castles, forts, monasteries, convents, and palaces. These offer luxury accommodation but at a price. As there are only 96 in the whole of Spain, opportunities to use them on your Camino will be limited. If you can find one and you can afford it, then consider it for a bit of luxurious pampering to recharge your batteries, but expect to pay between 100 and €350 per night per person for the privilege. Advance booking isn't necessary, and I've only pre-booked on a couple of occasions when we'd been advised that the next town was particularly full. If you do want to stay in a particular accommodation or simply want to have the reassurance of knowing that you're going to have a bed, then by all means pre-book. However, I wouldn't advise booking more than 1 or 2 days in advance because plans can change and you don't want to be committed to an accommodation that you've already prepaid if you won't be able to use it. On that vein, if you do book and realise that you won't be staying there for whatever reason, please ring and cancel the booking, freeing up a bed for someone else. Next time, I'll be discussing food, where, and what to eat. I'm Gary Swift, and if you've enjoyed this episode of Bite Size Camino, please give me a rating or review. It really does help.